With Ferrari's F40 regarded as one of the most iconic cars ever made, it often overshadows its anniversary successor, the F50, despite the fact that the F50 is a much rarer machine, with just 349 made against the F40's 1,315, and an F50 is worth about 3 times as much.
Which means I'm about to take a £3 million car for a blast in the Scottish Highlands. Both are, of course, anniversary models, with the F40 coming exactly 40 years after the first Ferrari badged car was built in 1947. Whilst the F50 actually jumped the gun by a couple of years. Not that a couple of years matter when you start to soak up the detail of a car created to give a lucky owner as close an experience to driving a Grand Prix car as they possibly could. Of course, the big difference with the F40 is that while that had all the huff and puff and whoosh and wheeze of its turbocharged engine, this has got the normally aspirated V12 singing a rapturous harmony in your ears. You can't just stop wishing to go down a gear and build the revs like a conductor and build them higher and build them higher and build them higher and build them higher and build them higher.
You'll have to excuse the percussion section of this orchestra, which has been provided by the occasional cat's eyes which I was hitting on the road. The engine, though, sounds fantastic and is the same 65-degree V12 block that powered the 3.5-litre Ferrari 641 Grand Prix car, in which Alain Prost took 5 wins and Nigel Mansell won back in 1990, which was also very kindly entrusted to me when I had a drag race against the F50 driven by some bloke called Clarkson in a truly epic Top Gear tale.
The engine had already been stretched to 4 litres for use in their 333 Sports prototype, and then stretched even further to the 4.7 litres I've got wailing along behind me, pumping out a full 520 horsepower. Okay, that is 230 less than the very high-revving Formula 1 engine produced. It'll still launch its F50 to 62 in just 3.9 seconds and take you on to 202 miles an hour if you fancy it. And when they said they wanted to give the driver the full Grand Prix experience, they really meant it. They created a carbon monocoque that I'm sitting in very stiff. Then they literally bolted the V12 to the back of the chassis like they do in Formula 1 cars, with the engine being a stressed member of the whole construction, and the rear suspension hung out on the back of the gearbox. But of course, by doing that in a Formula 1 car, it means that there's very little insulation to all the vibrations of the engine coming through the chassis. That's part of the sensation. You not only hear the engine, you feel it through your body. At the moment I'm just cruising along at, 3,500 revs. Once you start winding it up, the sensation just gets greater and greater. You probably won't be able to hear me, but you can tell the revs I'm doing by the smile on my face. I'm Alain Prost. I wish I was. The only thing that doesn't give the same experience as Alain Prost's 641 Formula 1 car is the gearbox, because we don't have the flappy paddles. They're in the early stage of development and it was a bit too complicated to fit them, which I'm delighted with, because instead I've got a classic gated Ferrari gear shift where I can do the changes. This gear change can look a bit daunting, but it's actually brilliant. It clicks from gear to gear. And of course it leaves the steering wheel completely uncluttered. No paddles, no switches, nothing. Just a neat, round steering wheel.
It's not quite so simple on the outside, with ducts and intakes appearing across the carbon fibre bodywork, along with that iconic wing moulded into the rear corners of the car. The styling created a lot of debate when it first came out. It looks great from some angles, but not so great from others.
Jeremy even went as far as calling it ugly, which is a bit harsh, Jeremy. I don't really care as long as it's red and I'm sitting inside it. Surprisingly, it weighs in at a quite high 1,397 kilograms, with 42% of that weight on the front wheels and 58 on the rear, which is a bit nearer a Formula One car, unlike the perfect 50-50 split so many people talk about with things like BMWs. But of course you want more weight on the rear to get all this power on the road. Handling-wise, the F40 is very much the rough and tough racing car, ready to dance to whatever tune you play. Instant oversteer available on tap to put a smile on your face. Whereas this F50 has a much more smooth and refined approach. I remember when I tested it at Ferrari when the car was first launched, I was slightly annoyed by a mild understeer that was always there. So it can't be instantly pitched into a corner. But then of course, Alain Prost was famous as a driver who liked a little bit of understeer. The steering has the most amazingly well sorted out weight. At slow speed, it's really heavy trying to just do a 3-point turn. But as soon as you're over about 10 miles an hour, it just comes alive in your hands, guiding you into an apex and then firing you out. This is such a joy.
Ferrari intended to use the F50 to go racing and produce 3 F50 GT prototypes, but the regulations changed and they cancelled the programme.
So, while the F50 never actually got to be a racing car, it really is the closest thing you'll ever get to driving a Grand Prix car on the road.